Get him up. Let him get up. Let him get up. Let him get up. Fight back. Fight back. Fight back.
What up, peeps? Hope y'all doing well. We're back with another one, and if you've been tuning into the streams, you already know that this is going to be a combat-centered devlog. You also know that things don't always go as planned. In this stretch of the project, I had quite a few things planned for this build, but due to time constraints and the fact that life be lifing, I had to cut some things short. I had a whole list of things to work on, but unfortunately I just couldn't get to them all before this devlog needed to go up. But with that said, a lot of progress was made nonetheless, and I was able to take care of some of the things I really wanted to work on. As I mentioned before, I've streamed a few times over the last few weeks while working on this project and got a couple of questions related to programming, with the most prevalent one being, how do I start? Fortunately, today's sponsor, Boot.dev, is the perfect place. Boot.dev is an online self-paced learning platform that specifically tackles one of my biggest challenges when I started to learn programming, which was boredom. They achieve this through gamifying their platform to look and feel exactly like playing an RPG. You can gain levels, earn achievements, complete quests, buy monthly boss battles, and there's even a global leaderboard. The platform is designed specifically to jump you straight into writing code, which honestly, what better way to learn how to program than actually by writing code and shipping projects. Through Boot.dev, you can learn Python and Go, which are great picks when learning your first programming language, and they're both used in the industry for back-end programming. Speaking of the industry, according to Stack Overflow, in the US, the median salary for back-end developers in 2023 was over $100,000. The platform also has an AI assistant named Boots, a powerful bear wizard, who can help you out whenever you get stuck on a concept. Boots is trained on each lesson and will ask you questions to help you figure out the lesson, instead of just giving you the answer. So if you're looking for a fun way to code, as well as learning job-ready programming skills in the process, click my link in the description and use code HeyI'mKeely for 25% off your first month, or 25% off your first year if you go with the annual plan. Thanks again to Boot.dev for sponsoring this video. Let's start with some of the changes. First, I tweaked Zero's vaulting and added new animations. I decided to remove the front flip to be used for something else later. The action itself plays out faster and doesn't disrupt Zero's momentum as much as it used to, but I think it could still be improved a bit. The wall climb animation has also been updated using a different climb animation, as well as using the front flip animation mentioned before once Zero reaches the ledge. There are actually two flips that play at random. Next, in the original games, the height that Zero jumps is based on how long you hold the jump button. So I added that as a mechanic in this project. While working on this, I noticed that Zero's hand was open during the jump. So using animation layers and masks, I added an animation that only affects Zero's hands when he jumps and overrides the other animation's hands. The wall run has also been tweaked a bit with the new animation and camera angle. The wall run jump has also been improved to jump at a fixed angle, and you no longer have to hold down forward in order to continue to run. And you can cancel the run simply by pressing the jump button or the dash button. Up until this point, in order to sprint, you first had to dash. And if you're still holding the dash button, once the dash ends, then Zero will go into a sprint. I added the option to sprint without having to dash first, which meant that I needed to tweak some of Zero's controls to free up an additional input. More on inputs later. The lock-on system has been updated to only target enemies in front of the camera, because prior to this there was a bug that would allow you to lock on to enemies that were behind Zero. Also, enemies had to be within a certain distance of Zero. This is done using a trigger that's connected to the camera. Something I need to add in the future is to check the distance between Zero and the lock-on target, so that if he gets too far away, the lock-on will break.
What's your name? What? What is your name? Tony! You, Tony!
And also I need to add target switching. The lock-on system now targets a position in the hierarchy of the enemy's object instead of the root object. This solves a visual issue where the lock-on position isn't actually on the enemy model itself, but instead is on the collider. However, doing this broke some of the projectiles due to how the new colliders are set up on the enemy. I fixed most of these, but there are a few that are still buggy. Finally, you can skip the last attack in the saber combo by holding down the saber attack button. This is meant to resemble the charged saber attack from the OG games. A new issue that I'm currently facing in this project is figuring out a uniform control scheme. The more actions Zero has, then the more complex controls get, specifically on controller, which is the primary input device for this project. I'll be using an Xbox controller for these examples, but the project also works with PlayStation controllers. So let's take a quick rundown of the new controls. Left stick is for movement, right stick controls the camera. D-pad vertical is for cycling sub-weapons. D-pad horizontal is for cycling element chips. Spoilers. X is primary attack and also confirms your sub-weapon when switching. Y is sub-weapon attack and also cancels your sub-weapon switch. B is dash, A is jump. LB is a modifier button and when held changes X, Y, A, B, and RB into special attacks. Left trigger is unused but was originally used to go into over-the-shoulder mode for certain weapons by holding it down, but that can now be toggled with RB. RB is now a uniform weapon action button that performs the unique ability of sub weapons such as switching to over the shoulder mode with the buster, throwing the shield, or grappling with the chain rod. Right trigger is used to fire weapons while in over the shoulder mode. Also, pressing Y while in over the shoulder mode with the buster goes into shot lock. Blade mode has been disabled until I can figure out the right controls for it. I'm considering making it left trigger. I need to rework the element chip and sub weapon cycling first though, so blade mode won't be available in this build. Finally, clicking the left stick is the new input for sprinting, and clicking the right stick is the new input for toggling lock-on. Now these sound pretty streamlined for a controller, but are quite cumbersome on M&K, in my personal opinion. So there's definitely more work that needs to be done. The shield received a few updates, starting with the parry visual effects and hit stop. I also added a new throw attack if Zero is currently locked onto an enemy. Once it hits, it attaches to the enemy and does extra damage over time. Zero can also recall the shield at any point after it attaches to an enemy. He can also combo into the throw and recall animations. Something I'm planning on doing in the future is to change the parry animation to look more like the shield parry from a Souls game. And honestly, I was thinking of changing the shield from being a selectable sub weapon into being an ability that Zero could use all the time, regardless of the sub weapon equipped. That was until I got to the element chips. We've now reached the point where I started to run out of time on some of the tasks I had set for the project. I've received a lot of questions asking if Zero is going to use the chips or cyber elves to augment his abilities like in the OG games. These give him abilities like being able to walk on spikes, attack faster, double jump, and a lot more. So my answer to that question is yes and no. I decided to go with the element chips, which, as the name states, adds an element to Zero's attacks. However, each form will also have some type of added benefit, which would resemble the other chips or cyber elves. Also, one of these chips doesn't even exist in the OG games, but I added it anyway because reasons. The 4 element chips are Flame, Thunder, Wind, and Frost. The first thing to do was to take care of the visuals, which was a simple material swap to get the armor colors. Same for the blade colors and trails. This is all handled through code. The weapons also have a small particle effect that play on the blade. Chips are cycled with left and right on the D-pad, and I need to add some type of visual or animation when it happens because right now it just happens. Also, his default state also counts as a chip and gives him access to 1 attack per element. Basically, how he was before adding the chip system. Starting off with the flame chip, when equipped, changes the last attack of the saber combo into a 3-hit fire attack. It also makes all normal attacks fire element, including other special attacks. As an added benefit, Ryuinji, which is already fire, gets extra hits. Same goes for the other chips, and I simply call them plus versions of the attacks. The shield also creates an explosion when recalled after being attached to an enemy if the flame chip is equipped. Future plans for the flame chip are for it to increase the damage Zero can deal, but also increase the amount of damage he can take. He'll also be able to set enemies on fire for extra tick damage. The thunder chip increases Zero's attack speed and is ground combat focused. Get it? Electricity? Grounded? It's because the recall attack with the shield and the charge attack with the saber both spike enemies down to the ground. And just like with flame, the other attacks are switched to thunder. Raijingeki Plus adds 2 follow-up attacks if it lands and sets up enemies for additional attacks. The end goal with the thunder chip is that it would be Zero's anti-air form, and it would give him more access to ground-based follow-up attacks. Now, the wind chip doesn't exist in the OG games, but since Zero has wind attacks, I figure it's worth adding. The wind chip is the opposite of the thunder chip. It is focused on aerial combat and adds extra rapid hits to the end of certain attacks. in addition to popping enemies up for air combos. The boomerang shield creates a small spiral around the enemy that hits them rapidly, holds them in place, and then pops them in the air. And in addition to that, Zero can double jump. Kuenzan Plus adds 3 extra hits before the big slash at the end. This is inspired by Dante's air wave from DMC. In addition to all of this, just like Dante, Zero can jump cancel this attack just like Dante would jump cancel air wave and perform a follow-up. Actually, I'm currently setting up other attacks to be jump cancelable, and it leads to some wild combos, especially in wind form. Finally, the frost chip. Just like previous ones, I wasn't able to get everything set up exactly how I wanted prior to this devlog. The frost chip causes certain attacks to freeze the enemy, and the plan for this form is to keep enemies frozen, because unlike fire form, this form will deal less damage, but in return take less damage. That said, it would deal more damage if the enemy was frozen. The visual effects need a bit of work, especially for the charged saber attack. Before we wrap things up, check out these new attacks in action. And that's where we are with the project. I apologize for things not being as clean, polished as they were in previous devlogs, but I'm kind of starting to get more comfortable showing things while they're still a work in progress, especially during the streams where you can pretty much see everything you don't see here in these videos. Speaking of dev streams, big shout out to my peeps that tune in and chat with me while I work on the project. Really appreciate y'all helping me figure some of this stuff out. I'm still trying to get a consistent streaming schedule, which was Monday, Wednesday, Friday. But after next week, I'm gonna have to switch things up and I'll probably only be able to stream on weekends. Also, there's some combos that are named after people from the streams, and I'll be showing those off in a separate video, probably a short. But yeah, you can see there's a lot of work I'm gonna have to do leading up into the next devlog. And at some point, I wanna add 2 more chips, light being Mythos Zero and dark being Chaos Omega. That being said, let me know down in the comments which element chip is your favorite. I do wish I at least had enough time to add the new UI, especially with the new control scheme that's set up. So for my Patreon supporters, I'm gonna have a document uploaded over there so you can see the layout of the new controls. Speaking of Patreon, if you want to try the current build of the project, it will be available over there. And as always, big thanks to my Patreon supporters. You all are the real MVPs. Also, the Discord should be available now. I really can't say due to when I'm editing this video. If it is, there'll be a link in the description where you can head over there and talk gaming, game design, and if you're a dev, you can show off your projects, possibly collab with some of the other devs, ask for tips, etc. And if the link isn't in the description,
My bad.
if you enjoyed the video, leave a like, and as always, if you're feeling super generous, how about subscribing? If you enjoyed the video, leave a like, and if you're feeling super generous, how about subscribing? It really supports this channel and this project, and it's completely free. And if you do, make sure to turn on notifications, and I'll catch you in the next dev stream. But that's gonna do it for me. Check out my website, hamkeely.fun, for updates on this project and other projects I'm working on, and check out my other socials. I hope you all have a great day, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.